Hello and welcome to Engage for Success Radio and show number 634 in our weekly series. Engage for Success is a not-for-profit movement and the UK's leading voice on the topic of employee engagement. We're out there raising awareness and running events through our area networks right around the country. And our topic and sector-specific thought and action groups are developing research, publishing case studies, and highlighting all the best practice that's going on out there. Now, to find out more, please visit engageforsuccess.org. And while you're there, why not sign up for our weekly newsletter so you ensure you never miss out on any of our excellent free resources, events, and updates. And I'm Andy Gorham, your host for today's show and the founder of BizJuicer, an employee engagement and culture change consultancy that helps growing organizations become stickier from the inside out by helping them attract, keep, and develop great people. Now, today, my friends, we're stepping into a conversation about change. Now, not necessarily the big, glossy transformation program kind of change, but the kind that's already happening quietly, continuously, and often faster than organizations can keep up with, because right now there is a hell of a lot going on. We've got 5 generations in the workplace. AI is reshaping roles in real time, and traditional models of leadership, collaboration, and culture are being challenged and disrupted from every angle. And here's the kicker. I don't know if you've noticed, but the latest Gallup State of the Global Workplace report has just dropped, and global engagement has fallen to 20%. Who cares? Well, that's the lowest level since 2020. And the data points squarely at one thing. And it's something that we've spoken a lot about on this show, the role of the manager. And at the same time, while organizations are investing heavily in AI, the report also shares we're not really seeing any of that stuff fall down into the bottom line performance improvement that everybody was talking about. So what is going on? Well, my guest today believes we're at a point where the old ways simply don't hold up anymore. Tom Kegode is the founder of SparkShift, and through his work lab approach, he brings people together to co-create practical solutions to the challenges shaping the world of modern work. He's worked across banking, government, and the third sector, and what he's seeing has led him to identify 6 key shifts that are fundamentally reshaping how organizations work, lead, and collaborate. So today, we have got a packed 30-minute conversation that we're going to explore these shifts and what they may mean for leaders trying to build cultures that actually keep up with the world around them. Tom, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you at such an exciting and I guess kind of like interesting time for the world of work, because I think there's so much going on. And like you said, that Gallup report was just almost kind of really, it's quite something.
Yeah, it made me have to change the intro on one of my own podcasts, because I talked about the stagnation of engagement, and now we're regressing. So, things have definitely changed, and there is a lot on. I'm sure we'll use that report to have a cracking conversation today, my friend. Before I get all excited and run on into that, do me a favor. Introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about you and what you're focused on today.
Yeah, sure. So look, I've spent sort of, I guess the way I describe it is I've had kind of 3 chapters in over the last sort of 15 years in my career. So I started at Lloyds Banking Group as a cashier, sort of way back in 2009. Spent a lot of time in the branch network, in particular, sort of leading teams during the kind of the period of transformation that we were seeing, where we were really starting to think about how do we create a better culture in our branches in terms of the kind of way that we execute based on customer experience, removing some of the poor behaviors around sales performance. So that was the kind of the first period of transformation. Frontline teams in the branch network across the Wales and West region, and working and coaching with coaching bank manager teams there. And then sort of the second chapter, so that was the next sort of 5-year chunk, was I moved across into our central innovation team. And this was the time we were looking at digital transformation. So it was in the digital part of the bank, right? And actually we were sort of, it was the time that fintech was arriving on the scene to kind of eat the big bank's lunch and really sort of disrupting the traditional products and services that customers would interact with and engage with. So that was a really interesting time because we introduced the concept of hackathons, actually the more immersive experiences that help people to bring the outside into their thinking, and to try and think and navigate what that kind of future of work would look like. That's where I kind of became really obsessed with how we work better, and how we have fun at work as well. So I'm a really big fan. The book that came out at the time was The Joy of Work by Bruce Daisley. We did quite a lot of work with that at the time to think about how you could create the environment where teams love coming to work. And then I was just at the point where I was starting to explore some of these new concepts, right? So Microsoft Teams, and asynchronous working, which also coincided with the exact moment of the beginning of the sort of next 5-year chapter for me, which was moving into the HR space within the People and Places team. Coincided with COVID. So the time that a couple of weeks before, sort of late 2019, I was talking about asynchronous work and Microsoft Teams, and people were giving me quite a strange look. And then it took about a month later, they were knocking on my door saying, "Let's understand this new way of working." So it was again a very interesting time to be thinking about work. So that's the sort of last 5 years of my chapter at Lloyds was working with the Chief People and Places Officer as we were transforming the organisation on its mission as it is now to become the UK's biggest fintech, and I guess kind of partnering her directly on how do we transform and change the organisation. So thinking about sort of the places that we have from a workplace experience perspective, the people and places function, and actually what does that need to look like to serve in the future, as well as the ways of working. So that was kind of where I got to, and I kind of realised at that point that I was on my third transformation. So I was thinking, well, hold on a minute. When we think about the concept of transformation, I think actually the world that we live in now, it's no longer the kind of the era of the big bang change programs and transformations that we've seen in the past. Actually, we're entering a phase where we need to be much more iterative and think much more of a kind of an evolution mindset over transformation. So that was the point I decided I'm going to disrupt myself. And I decided after 15 years I was going to leave and set up, because I wanted to work with more teams and individuals that were looking to really change the way that they work, and think about how their teams operate and come together, using lots of the sort of methods that I picked up along the way, both from the frontline teams, innovation teams, and across the HR space. So, which led me to where I am today. So,
look at you, marvelous! What a time to be doing that as well, Tom. Right? What a time.
I mean, it's a very interesting time, particularly with the kind of the emergence of the AI tools that are now available, which removes so many barriers compared to what we had when I was trying to do innovation a few years ago. Because if you can think it, you can make it these days, and that's really exciting for everybody, I think.
Really, really exciting, and I think it will be impossible for us not to have a chat where AI appears in conversation today. I mentioned at the top of the show that you've identified these kind of 6 shifts that are out there that are, I guess, underpinning how organizations are reshaping how they work, how they lead, or what effective leadership looks like, or even, like you were just sort of saying, how they collaborate and work, right? How they operate. So I don't know if we'll get through all 6 today, but let's get them on the table, right?
Let's get them on the table.
Get them on the table and let's have a little chat. Let's see what we see. So the 6 shifts, what are they that you see? And what is it about them that's coming through really strongly right now? And we can just pick a couple and have a go.
Okay, cool. So I'll rattle through the 6 quickly so that we know what they are. We'll get them on the table, and then we can decide which one we may want to unpick. So, and these have come out of conversations I've had over the last 6 months, speaking to sort of a range of CEOs, leaders, HR teams, founders that are across multiple industries and sectors, and they're just kept resurfacing. One of the great thing about sort of transitioning to a solopreneur is that you end up having lots of conversations with lots of people, and actually that can start to surface some really common themes. So the first one I've already mentioned, the shift from transformation to evolution. The organizations that are thriving right now really are the ones that are continuously evolving, working in focused sprints with a bias towards iteration. So that kind of opportunity to have a more evolution mindset, ready for change and disruption.
Yeah.
Roles to missions is the second shift. So I think we're starting to see this kind of movement where actually We're assembling the right skills that we need at the point of need, working on a mission together, and then dispersing back out to be part of that skills ecosystem when ready to reform. So it's something that Spotify have done for years with this kind of squad model, but actually more organizations, and what that does is it actually gives people the opportunity for additional stretch on the job. It's a great way of really demonstrating this kind of skills-based organization that many people are adopting, a great way of putting that into practice. And we got some good examples of those kind of cross-functional teams coming together again during the COVID period, which taught us a lot about if you need to make this change happen, you can do it quickly, but you just need to reorganize. So that shift from roles to missions. The third one is around intentional leadership.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting, and it links in with some of the Gallup stuff as well, right? So we're in a place where almost you get to a point where you are a leader by default. So perhaps you become you're excellent at your craft, and actually as the job gets bigger, you acquire a team. Now you may have not necessarily wanted to run a team, right? And actually you might be the part that you least enjoy, but it comes with that kind of that progression that you're looking for. So I think there's kind of this kind of shift as a lot of the kind of other younger generations are saying they want to opt out of those leadership positions, and actually it's not for me. We'll start to see a more specific path that emerges for people that say, I want to be a leader. Actually, I really like leading people. It aligns with my purpose. So that intentional leadership, the third one. The fourth one, multi-generation workforces. So we've got 5 generations in the workforce for the first time ever. And I think the opportunity that we have within that is this shift from a generational divide to a generational exchange, because there's so much opportunity to learn from each other. And actually, if you can create the moments that enable people to have those exchanges, then actually you'll see some real value in that. And then the global opportunity is the next one for me. So I've been spending some time exploring as a bit of a digital nomad to understand sort of what work looks like in different parts of the world. So I spent some time in Thailand earlier this year, and I was in Nairobi in Kenya at the end of last year. So I think what's really exciting about this is the Africa opportunity. So youngest continent on the planet. I think the median age is around 19 at the moment, and the workforce is already really highly tech-enabled. There was a huge sort of shift to mobile much earlier than we saw, particularly in Kenya, because of the kind of the infrastructure that existed across the country. So a really interesting new potential talent pool. I think that's going to become more and more of a focus for organizations. They're thinking, where do they want to sort of look for the talent in their organizations? And then the final one, it cannot be not discussed, but I left it to last, is the AI enabled culture. So when we think about the opportunity now, the technology is there, but we need to create the conditions for people to use it well. And that's a culture and leadership challenge. So you can't introduce the technology without creating the conditions and actually giving people the freedom to be curious, to test and learn with that kind of curious mindset. So those are the 6 shifts.
Right. And I think they're shifts that we must all recognize, right? We must recognize these, and they will be interesting themes that we will have talked about over the years. I think there's a real energy behind most of these shifts, though, right? And we've both referenced it, but that Gallup report that comes out, which for people like, I can't speak for you, Tom, so I won't, but for people like me, I kind of wait for that to drop each year, because it's a good piece of stimulus for really trying to see, has anything changed? Because we chuck billions of hours at this topic of engagement, of motivation, and we spend billions of pounds and dollars on trying to create cultures. Leadership development is getting more and more invested in, maybe too late, and yet we've got this thing that's sort of saying, well, it's not working. It's really not working. I'm interested in all of these topics. I mean, 30 minutes. I mean, we've got that left, but it would be pointless trying to get all those across in there. I wonder whether we should pick up first on that intentional leadership thing, because I think that probably hits a number of notes here. The concept of almost accidental leadership, I think, is well known. I think this thing about more intentional leadership, let's dig into that for a bit. So specifically, Tom,
Mm.
why is this something we need to kind of like really be talking about and acting upon right now? What is it you're hearing in all the conversations and the work you're doing?
So I think what makes this really important right now, there's a couple of things that are coming together. So
Hmm.
we've obviously got the generational view.
Yeah.
So actually I think we've shifted, I think it was in the US just towards the back end of last year, the highest number of people in managerial positions was that had shifted to millennial over Generation X. So that's a shift that's going on. At the same time, you've got people that are saying that they're opting out. Like there's a term that's known as conscious unbossing, right? Which is the term where people are saying, actually, I don't want to do that, or I'm pursuing a different kind of career, or something that's slightly more portfolio in terms of the way that they will be looking at their career. So we've got these multiple changes happening. So, but at the same time, the way that we lead and manage in the world that we're in today and in the future is going to look very different from the world that we were in the past. So there's almost this kind of opportunity that exists right now to rebalance what those leadership expectations look like as you go into the future. And I guess that gives people the opportunity to say, actually, do you know what? This is not for me. I want to do something different. So it's almost like we need to have that. We need to open up that conversation needs to open up to then enable people that say, do you know what? I really do want to be a leader to emerge, because otherwise we're going to end up with quite a significant sort of pipeline problem when it comes to people that can lead teams. So it's almost as if we are going to be fundamentally changing the way that work gets done, which we are. We fundamentally need to change the way that leaders lead and line managers can give them the tools to be able to lead in this new world as well, because it's going to be very different. And also when you think about now how technology plays into that, when you think about the skills needed to manage a team that's made up of people and agents, because that's likely what we're going to start to see, is going to be a very different skill set too. So it's almost like a perfect storm for us to start the process of rethinking what leadership of the future needs to look like.
I think that is interesting, because this is, I think, like you're saying, the knock-on effects on multiple shifts here. I think the intentional leadership thing, yes, we're seeing, I guess we are seeing the younger generations coming through opting out of this leadership thing, maybe because they can see the state of the poor managers that they're working for and thinking, do you know what, I don't fancy that. That doesn't feel good. And that's got its own root causes and solutions. I think there's the thing about preparing people for leadership too. So at the point that perhaps you put your hand forward, okay, well, what support are you going to get?
Exactly.
There's a scary stat. I mean, you can make up stats about anything, but I was speaking to someone the other day. Something like 76% of managers today have had no formal kind of like management training, leadership training. Even scarier, 26% of senior leadership haven't either. So, we've got a lot of people who have been kind of ducking and diving and kind of coping and finding a way through. And if we think about the sort of generational trap, you probably learned from people who were 15, 20 years into a role, which today, we think at the pace of change, even if they were awesome in their day, you're probably learning the wrong things to be effective today and tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think it's, you can't blame people for saying, actually, I don't really fancy that, when they're looking at, and we're seeing the information that's coming out of this report, which is showing that middle managers are feeling more sad, more lonely, more angry, more stressed. Like, if that is kind of how they're feeling, then I'm not surprised people are saying, do you know what, that's not what the path I want to pursue. So there's definitely something around how are we making sure that we're investing in our leaders, because like I said, this is a perfect time to do that with the change that we're seeing. And almost recognizing the impact that they have. So there's always the conversation, your experience that you're having at work is going to be significantly weighted towards the experience that you have with your direct line manager. Like the impact that they have is huge. People leave, everyone always says, people will leave a bad manager. You'll leave a bad manager, you won't leave the company. So it's thinking about it from the impact that these people can have. Now that's something that's playing out specifically, comes out in the report that we saw from Gallup, because the impact that the line manager has on the perception, even just the perception of whether or not we're the tools that they're using, particularly from an AI perspective, are transforming the organization, is heavily weighted towards the bias that the manager has. So
yeah, if this is a good thing, I'm in.
Exactly.
If it's annoying, don't get it, not interested in it, the team kind of like pull out of it.
Exactly. So when that employees who've shown that their manager actually supports AI adoption are 8.7 times more likely to say it's transformed the way that work gets done. So that's a huge, you can see you've got people that are at different stages of this journey, but actually the significant impact that has when companies are investing billions of pounds on these tools and then wondering why they're not getting adopted. So actually, how do we make sure that we're bringing everyone to a baseline understanding of how these can be used, and encouraging the curiosity and experimentation mindset that we need in the future?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, that that point alone backs up the third pillar of the Engage for Success kind of blueprint of engaging managers, right? People who can lead, stretch, support, and get into this stuff and motivate. And if the power of those people, whilst they're not responsible for people's happiness, a word that you've used before at the start of the show in terms of happiness, they impact it hugely. They impact motivation hugely. They impact effort hugely. So that we can't underestimate that. I think what's really interesting listening to you as well, because we are kind of like lumping all these things and crossing them over, which is lovely. You've got those conflicting things in the labor force, in the leadership kind of pool right now, right? Because you've got boomers leaving, you've got X's kind of quitting early, which is creating some kind of leadership pool deficiency, and you've got a whole bunch of young people coming through who are either ill-equipped because they haven't been given the right support, or are now opting out of the leadership management role. I mean, that's a big issue waiting for us if we don't sort something out.
It's a huge issue, but then I also like to think there's a real opportunity, because if we do rebalance what it means to be a leader, and actually we sort of like show this is the kind of leader that we need in the future, then actually people might see and importantly, as we said there, demonstrate the investment that will be given to that individual that's moving into that. And actually, you might have a whole load of people that are putting their hands up saying, do you know what? I'd love to be a leader. So because that becomes almost a career pathway in itself. So I think it's about finding that kind of opening up the doors to see like who might potentially want to be a leader, rather than almost making, crowning somebody a leader once they get to a certain level of kind of seniority within a place, which I think is
I think that's a really, really interesting place to be. I think how we get under the skin of who really wants to be a leader, so it's not just personality led, like the person who's bravest to put their hands up, or deluded puts their hands up the most and that I'll be the leader, and perhaps the more reflective, analytical, dare say quiet people who've probably got lots and lots to offer but don't have the confidence to put themselves forward. We need to engage with these guys too.
Absolutely. And this is also where I think, and this is where that kind of crosses over to the generations point, which we talked about. So I think the other thing that's quite a significant risk with the kind of this generational movement that we're seeing is that actually you're going to have quite a lot of organizational knowledge start to exit the workforce soon as well. So that, and this is this is knowledge that is kind of really difficult to replace. So and yet also we've then got a next generation coming through that are saying they want access to this information and they want to be able to learn. So that's when this becomes even more of a kind of time critical issue, because as people are sort of, you want to retain organizational knowledge, but you need to facilitate, and I like to use the concept of wisdom exchange, because there's things across those generations that you can learn from each other. So how you retain the organizational knowledge, but actually I might be speaking to somebody if I'm about to retire, for example, and then I speak to somebody that's brand new, day 2 into the workforce. there's the things that I can learn that will be really useful for the next phase of my life from somebody that is entering, and things that I can share from my experience there as well. So it's about finding that mutual benefit. But to do that, you've got to create the conditions. You've got to create that environment for that to happen, and almost be quite purposeful with it.
I think so. I think you've also got to create some more, improved understanding of the differences across some of the generations. Whilst you can't kind of tar brush everybody the same, if I take just a couple of things, if you take a couple of the key traits behind boomers and X's, who until recently have been the bigger management pool, that is around loyalty and hierarchy, right? That's how we were raised. Now it's about curiosity and meritocracy. Conflicting differences. One can be seen as stuffy and unrealistic. One could be seen as rude, asking all these questions and wanting stuff that I never got when I'm we got to get through all of this stuff and help people understand what's really, really going on, because I'm with you. The generation exchange, I think, as you called it, is where we've really got to start playing, or else we're going to head for a problem.
We really are. And it's that kind of those inherent skills that, like you mentioned there, so things like curiosity, asking questions, those are all the exact skills that we need in the future. So we've got a population that are coming through with those that are built in, and yet we're saying or we've got people that are saying that they haven't got the right skills for the world of work, whereas actually we're measuring it against the skills of the world of work for yesterday. So we need to just create that opportunity to learn, because there's so much opportunity for that crossover. And actually there's a lot more in common. I'm actually working on a session at the moment around multi-generational exchange, and it's all about how much more we have in common than what divides us. So there's a huge opportunity there, I think. And also with the skew towards more people wanting, in a high-tech world, more people are wanting in-person human experiences. What better way to do that than to bring together generations in a room and give them the opportunity to explore what keeps them, what makes them more similar than what's different.
I love it. And look, what a surprise. We're crashing through time. I'd be an idiot if I didn't ask you a quick question around AI, and something you just said just triggered something in me, in that we are surrounded by tech. Everything has got AI in it. Even if it hasn't got AI in it today, you can't escape it. So we are more, I guess, digital, technologically advanced than we've ever been before, and yet we are at a time perhaps where we need more humanity in the workplace. What are your key thoughts around that? And it's a ridiculous amount of time to give you to kind of even begin to herald that, but what are you seeing?
So you are bang on. So one of the things I love about AI tools and the concept of large language models is that they are particularly good at handling messy human thinking conundrums and organizing them into some kind of logic. So I think the more we can invest in human skills now, the better the outputs that we'll get when we use those tools. When we're talking to AI, we can actually talk in human language now. We can use plain English rather than having to sort of speak in a specific way. That's something I would encourage everyone to try. There's ways that you can kind of use that kind of common language, and the AI will pick up what you're trying to say. So I think it's about being curious. I think it's about dialing up those things that make you human: better thinking, empathy, judgment. All of those things are what you invest in. The more you invest in those right now, the better that you're going to get the output from those tools. So yeah.
I love. Firstly, thank you for using the term human skills. You have made my heart sing, because it's the key to the trigger of the words soft skills for me, because I think how you just explained it, there is nothing soft about this stuff. This is hardcore things. These are the things, though, if we get right, I think make a major difference to people working in organizations. Tom, we could have had this chat for another hour and a half and still got nowhere near covering everything. Before I let you go, firstly, thanks for coming on and bringing these topics to the fore again. Absolutely brilliant. If listeners would like to find out more about what you're getting up to, how they can connect with you, get in touch, where should they go, my friend?
So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So I post quite actively on LinkedIn, also on my Substack as well, around the kind of journey that I'm on as a solopreneur on Substack, but also talking about what's going on in the world of work, active on LinkedIn. So connect with me there. I'm always up for a virtual coffee as well. So so that's the best place to find me.
And the man has energy, folks. There's no question about it. He's full of beans, and like everybody that's listening, very passionate about the world of work and making it a better place to be. So, Tom, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been fantastic. Unfortunately, though, that is all the time that we have for today. So, listen, don't forget to visit engageforsuccess.org, where you can check out the show notes and explore all the free employee engagement resources, and where you can also download this or any of the previous episodes at your leisure. We'll be back at the same time next week. I'm Andy Gorham, and thanks for listening to Engage for Success.
Engage for Success Radio, raising the profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.